Hello there, and welcome to Play the Game with Steve. Villains Beyond, Episode 3, Ultron. I am not a robot, I am an android. We're going to go into Ultron's different stage numbers, his stats, and all the different abilities that he has on those stages. And also we're going to take a look at his unique encounter deck and how his master plan is really going to mess up our hero's overall strategy to try to take him down. And finally, we're going to take a look at some of the modular sets that we can include in this scenario pack to increase the thematics, the difficulty, or just the overall enjoyment of this scenario. All this and more on this episode of Villains Beyond, Ultron. So Ultron is an android. He on stage 1 he has 17 hit points per player. Stage 2 he's got 22 per player, and then on stage 3 he's got 27 per player. That's a lot of health. And then on stage 1 he has a scheme of 1, an attack of 2, and a forced response, which says after Ultron attacks you, you need to choose to either place one threat on the main scheme or put the top card of your deck into play face down, engaged with you as a drone minion. And that is part of his unique mechanics. Ultron is going to use your deck against you as drones. I love it, love it. On stage 2, Ultron has a scheme of 2, an attack of 2, and a forced interrupt. Now, forced interrupt will happen before any forced responses. Now, I'll go into that in just a second. So the forced interrupt says when Ultron attacks you, put the top card of your deck into play as a face-down drone. Until the end of this attack, Ultron gets +1 attack for each drone minion engaged with you. So a couple things to note here. If Ultron is stunned, he will never attack, so you will not have this forced interrupt that will trigger. There's also a couple of heroes that have some cards that interact. A couple of important cards to point out that these might be interactions that you might come up across. So one of them is Spider-Man. He has a Spider Sense interrupt and cards like Grasping Tendrils. So there is no difference between initiates an attack and attacks. So Ultron will create a drone regardless. So Spider-Man's Spider Sense is going to tingle after he gets a drone from Ultron, and same thing, you'll be able to play Grasping Tendrils after you get a drone, and you'll be able to cancel his attack. And I think Ghost Spider also has a card, Web Bindings, that can do something like that as well, cancel a villain activation. So, but these, you would always get a drone unless the villain is stunned. Alright, one last thing on his stage 2. It says his force interrupt gives him +1 attack for each drone minion engaged with you. Now, you, the player that's being attacked. Now, there's a couple things that we can modify that in the game rules. It says modifier, the game constantly checks and if necessary updates the count of the variable quantity that is being modified. So you see here, Ultron will get +1 attack for each drone minion engaged with you. He places a drone. But if you have a way to eliminate that drone as he is attacking, example with Hawkeye Arrow or example with the cross counter, that would reduce his attack immediately if you take away those drones. Another good thing about that as well is if he attacks you but another player defends and that player doesn't have a drone, you would be getting the drone, but the other player does not have that drone. So Ultron attack is going to get reduced for the or is going to get modified by the number of drones engaged with that player. So that's how that works. And then on stage 3, he has a scheme of 2, an attack of 4, and a passive ability that says each drone minion gets +1 attack and +1 hit point. Ultron cannot take damage while a drone minion is in play. So that is really, really interesting. So he is immune to all damage, retaliate, everything. So you cannot deal damage while there's a drone minion in play. And that in a multiplayer game can be really, really dangerous. And when revealed, you search the encounter deck and discard pile for Ultron's imperative, and that is his side scheme. You reveal it and then shuffle the encounter deck. So as you can see, Ultron's whole game mechanic revolves around creating drones, and then on his final stage, making those drones more powerful and also making himself immune while they are in play. Now, let's go take a look at his main scheme. All right, so the Crimson Cowl is stage 1. There is a setup ability. It says, put the Ultron drone's environment into play, shuffle the encounter deck, advance to stage 1B, and we'll look at the drone environment in a second. The Crimson Cowl has a 3 per player, so that is very, very low threshold. When revealed, each player puts the top card of their deck into play. Engage with them as a drone minion. So if you're playing a 4-player game, that's 4 drones right away off the bat. If it goes off 3 per player, it will go on to Assault on NORAD. And then this one, when revealed, each player puts the top card of their deck into play face down. Engage with them as a face down drone. And then advance to stage 2B, which has a cap of 10 per player. So that's a little bit more breathing room, but it says force response. After placing threat here during step 1 of the villain phase, each player must choose to either place 2 threat here or put the top card of their deck into play face down, engage as a drone minion. Now, one little thing here, if ever the main scheme pops up naturally, so let's say there's 2 threat on and then it goes naturally to stage 3, you are still after placing threat during step 1. So if you go to stage 2B when this happens, you will still have to play the force response because you've placed threat, and now it says, are you going to add 2 threat or a drone? And this is still not the final chapter, so if you go past 10 per player, then stage 3, which is countdown to oblivion, so there's 3 main schemes. When revealed, each player puts the top card of their deck into play face down. Engage with them as a drone minion as stage 3B. And this one says, if this stage is completed, the players lose the game, and it's a maximum of 5 per player. But the most important part of this is threat cannot be removed from this scheme. All right, just something to remember. Countdown Oblivion says threat cannot be removed from this scheme, but it can be prevented. So there's a couple of cards in the justice aspect that says that you can prevent threat, and that is legit. But once the threat goes on, it can never come back off. Not with abilities, not from support cards or anything. It is basically a permanent crisis icon. So the drone environment is a setup that says each face down drone minion engaged with a player has a base scheme of 1, a base attack of 1, and a base hit point of 1. There's also a force response. After a face down drone minion is defeated, place that card in its owner's discard pile. So again, so Ultron is stealing your cards, and now you actually have a way of getting them back. So once you defeat the little drones, bam, you put them back in your discard pile. So this is why it makes it very hard for you to plan against Ultron, because sometimes your key pieces, and especially for heroes that have these key pieces, like let's say Iron Man's armor pieces, if you lose them as drones, it can make your experience quite difficult versus Mr. Ultron. Now the different ways Ultron is coming at us, and the first thing we're going to look at is his side schemes. He has the Ultron imperative that you reveal when you go from stage 2 to stage 3, and says the first player puts the top 2 cards of their deck into play face down, engage with them as drone minions, and now they're not, if you're on stage 3, then they're not only 1/1s, they are now 2/2 drones, and it gives you an extra hazard card, and it's 2 per player. Then there's also the invasive AI. When revealed, each player discards the top 3 cards of their deck, when that's 3 per player, and an extra hazard icon. And then finally, the drone factory. And this one can be brutal. When revealed, each player puts the top card of their deck into play face down, engage with them as a drone minion, and then place 1 threat here for each drone minion in play. Next, we have a few attachments. And then the first one is the program transmitter. And this is a force response after Ultron schemes. Place 1 threat on each side scheme. It gives them also +1 scheme. And then you need to exhaust your hero and spend double mental resources to get rid of it. Then these are the very dangerous upgraded drones. So we can see again the thematics in this deck. So there's 2 of these environment cards or condition cards. that you attach to the Ultron environment. And this says each face down drone minion gets +1 attack and +1 hit point. So they can respectively become 2 2s, 3 3s, and on stage 3, 4 4 drones. So obviously you want to take care of these as soon as possible when they come in. It says hero action, spend 1 of each resource to discard this card. And these are really important to get rid of, or else it's going to make your gameplay experience almost unbearable. Then he has a few minions. And in these minions, these are advanced Ultron drones, and he has 3 copies of those. They are guards with 4 health, with 1 scheme, 1 attack. Also, they do not get the bonus from the face down drones. So the upgraded drones, these don't get the bonus, but they do get the bonus when you are on stage 3 of Ultron that says each drone minion gets +1/+1. So each drone minion, so that's so then they become 2 attack and 5 health. All right, and then forced interrupt. When the advanced drone is defeated, the engaged player puts the top card of their deck face down into play as a drone. So they just make more drones. So you defeat the big guy, and then he gets a little guy. So there's 3 of those in here. Now his treachery cards. All right, so there's a few treacheries here. Again, very thematic here with the repair sequence. When revealed, Ultron heals 2 damage for each drone minion engaged with you. But if he doesn't heal any damage, this card will gain surge. So that's an easy one to bypass by making sure that you deal at least 1 damage to Ultron. If it comes out as a boost card, Ultron will heal 1 damage for each minion engaged with you. All right, that's the easy one. Then there's the annoying one, and he has 3 copies of that, again in the thematics of Ultron, making more and more drones. Each player puts the top card of their deck into play face down, engage with them as a drone minion. And then as a boost card, you will have to spend either a mental, a lightning, or a physical to prevent placing an extra drone, because we do know on stage 2 you're already placing a drone, and his attack will increase for every drone in there. So there's ways to bypass this one, but it is a boost card that gives you a choice. So I really enjoyed this as well. Then again with the drones, we have the swarm attack. So when revealed, each drone minion engaged with you will attack. And if no attacks were made, you're going to put the top card of your deck face down as a drone minion. And there's 2 copies of that. And then finally, the Rage of Ultrons. So when revealed an alter ego, Ultron schemes, and then you're going to discard the top card of your deck for each threat placed this way. And this is something I kept forgetting to do. So you discard cards. So if he schemes for 3, then you discard 3 cards. Very simple. But this is the hero. When you're in hero form, Ultron attacks you, and then you discard the top card of your deck for each damage dealt by this attack. So if you block with an ally, the damage will still be dealt, and this is where I was making the mistake. I wasn't discarding cards after taking damage, or an ally takes damage. You gotta discard the cards. All right, now for modular sets variety here, and then to just play off of the theme. The first one I really enjoy is kind of having Ultron just increase his power. So I like the experimental weapons from the Rise of Red Skull, the exosuit that gives him a +1/+1, the laser rifle that now he's got ranged, and then I like the energy shield, so he gets his retaliate. So if you're not playing with the recommended under attack, he can still gain retaliate. And then the power gloves, so if he hits you, you have to discard cards. So I think these little weapons, not super difficult to remove. You know, you can always spend the resources. I think thematically it's kind of cool that Ultron is trying to just increase his size or increase his power, and then you try to have to hose him down by removing all these extra attachments. Or you can just let him in play. If you want to really play thematically, you can just like, oh no, he's got the upgrade, we're not removing it, and then just try to deal with Ultron with all this extra stuff, which I think is pretty fun. The second one, thematically, that I enjoy comes from the which is called the Sinister Motives box. Sorry about that. And it comes with Old Grudge, which is basically the Whispers of Paranoia. So I'm thinking Age of Ultron again, where Scarlet Witch is messing with the Avengers' head. So Old Grudge kind of plays into that here with the Search the Encounter deck for your Nemesis and put him into play, and then he teams up with Ultron to take you down. Analysis Paralysis comes the same thing, goes and gets your Nemesis' side scheme. And then there's the Delusions of Collusion. So again, all of this like mind-boggling things here that makes you not able to ready any allies. So it just kind of nerfs all the ally strategies that you could have. And then you have to discard some and go to Alter Ego to make that, go away. And then finally, the Manipulated Mind, again, that steals one of your allies and turns them into a minion. So I really like that on theme. Oh, I forgot about the difficulty. I think the experimental weapons, difficulty-wise, probably a 5. It's not that much. It's not that hard. This one, probably a 6.5. Just because, it depends on what strategy. There's also a couple of boost effects that I did forget to mention. Deal 1 damage to each character you control, and then the other one's the Delusion of Collusions, and if you block with an ally, you take damage equal to that ally's printed cost. So those are kind of cool effects that I like to see on certain cards. So at least you're kind of seeing the power of the card without, going all out. And then finally, for thematics, I really love that What If episode with Infinity Gauntlet Ultron, and this was a challenge. I played this with my Party Thor deck, which was kind of like, if you haven't seen that, you can go look into my What If playlist, and it's the final episode there. So it was pretty fun, and it is a big challenge. So the Infinity Gauntlet gives Ultron already +1 to all his 2 stats, and that's permanent. And then obviously all the stones that have that extra flavor every time he activates. So very, very cool. Difficulty wise, I would definitely say this is a 8, solid 8.5, maybe 9. Because you don't add another modular. So you're just having Ultron cards, the standard cards, and expert cards if you're playing on stage on expert. And then that Infinity Glove. So it's all Ultron. It's super thematic, and you really feel like you're getting all of Ultron with no dilution. So this is why I really enjoyed this as a modular for Ultron for like ultimate theme, and really gives him a really nice power boost. So those are the 3 on theme. All right, for difficulty wise. Now, difficulty-wise, my first choice comes from the Hood Scenario Pack, and it is the Streets of Mayhem. Now, there's 2 that are kind of cheeky. So Sewer Tunnels gives everything retaliate, so that's the easiest one you can get. Warehouse District is another kind of cheeky one that just says all the characters gain steady, which is not really has an impact on the game. Where the real impact comes is if you're playing in a multiplayer game, and then you get the Back Alley Enclave, and that gives all enemies or all characters +1 attack. So now these drones right away are attacking for 2, so that can become really, really dangerous pretty fast. And the other one that can be really dangerous is the Secret Lair. So if you get that in a multiplayer game and there's like 9-10 drones, every enemy gains an acceleration, and that just becomes out of control really, really fast. So you just got to kill every drone, or else you are just going to drown in threat. So difficulty wise, I would say it's probably a 6, maybe a 5. Just because, if these cards don't come out, it's not that hard. All right. Second hardest one I really enjoy as well, just for thematics, but as an increase in difficulty, is the Sentinels from the Mutant Genesis box. So that side scheme, the Relentless Robots, as all the enemy. You can't thwart this if you are engaged with a sentinel. There's a bunch of sentinels. There's the targeted for elimination. So these ones are pretty fun too, and you want to get rid of them, but then you have to exhaust, so you have to make choices. And if you don't get rid of them, then some nasty stuff happens, because these Mark V sentinels will go and get it, or if it's already in play attached to you, they'll attack you even if you're in alter ego form. So I really like that, because Ultron's trying to take over the world. So having other robots to play with, I think, is just fun. And then the Mark VI Sentinels that have Quick Strike, and then if you are targeted for elimination, they'll just come out as a boost card as well. And then you'll get them as an encounter card. So for me, I think the Sentinels was a nice little team up. Difficulty-wise, I would say probably a 7. Just because there's ways around it. There's only 4 Sentinels, so in the deck, in the Ultron deck, it's not that that Sentinel heavy, but it's still a pretty cool modular set that I enjoy. Robots on robots. And finally, for difficulty, I really like the guerrilla tactics from the Sinister Motives box. Especially for these cards, these side schemes. The first one, Hidden in Shadows. Each enemy gains a hazard icon. I know it's only 4 threat, but if you are confused or stunned, like if you can't get rid of it, it's just gonna be game over. Same thing for Teamwork Makes the Dream Work. That comes in with 5 threat and says each enemy gains +1 scheme and +1 attack. And that can be brutal with the number of minions you can have. And same thing for Coordinated Effort that says each enemy gains an acceleration icon. So kind of like the Streets of Mayhem, but just on a wider scale. So that's just, for me, it just hit home a lot. And then all these things have extra boost icons. This one says deal an indirect damage to each player and an expert and additional damage to the first player. And then this gets extra 2 boost icons. And then this one is place a threat on each scheme, and then an additional threat. And then you have cards like this from every direction that can just, again, really mess you up. In expert mode, it's going to gain surge, and not only that, but you place 1 threat for each enemy in play. So all these drones can just, it can almost be an auto game loss if you don't manage those drones. And then there's these 2 life-size decoys that can just kind of really block you, especially if you can't, if you don't get rid of them, you won't be able to remove side schemes. So that can be really, really punishing. So I like that for difficulty. I would say, depending on how lucky or unlucky you are, difficulty can range between an 8 or a 9, depending how these cards come out. And finally, for the lulz, I really enjoy most of the the Galaxy Most Wanted minion heavy modulars, like the Kree Militants. I like the Badoon. I also like the Menagerie. So I really like these intergalactic armies to add to Ultron. Just makes it a really, really messy minion heavy fight. And then aside from that, I also really enjoy the galactic artifacts, that just makes Ultron that can become really, really powerful with the extra boost or the +3 attack or the extra encounter card. So it can just be fun. And then you got like these really annoying ones like the poison, and then the potion of obedience that just makes your hero really low, and then these victory side schemes there that give you a little bonus. So that's for me is what I like for just when I for some reason the Galaxy's Most Wanted modular sets are probably some of my favorite in the game. I just enjoy them. I just keep going back to the space pirates and the Kree Militants. I don't know why. I just really like him. But I won't lie, I really like the Sinister Assault too. It's just those minions are just those characters are just fun. I just really like them. So, but yeah, for lulz, Ultron, I I like the electric guy, Electro modular set, and the Zaz modular set as well from Ironheart. So there's a bunch that I really, really enjoy. It was hard to just choose 3, so I'm just like, yeah, I'll just name them all, the ones I enjoy. All right, now let's talk about the best cards to bring to the party. Now, last time I only talked about 3 cards, but now I'm going to talk about one for each aspect against Ultron. Obviously, if you can stun Ultron as many times as you can, that is the best way to control drones. But if in case you can't control drones, in aggression, Hulk. Hulk is probably your best bet, especially in a lightning heavy resource deck where he can just eliminate every drone on the table just by attacking. So for me, Hulk is in aggression probably the best card you want to bring. After that, in protection, the best card I would say would be the energy barrier, just because you know you can soak up a damage and then kill the drone, so that makes a lot of sense. In Justice, the best card you probably want to have is the Under Surveillance. I would actually add 3 copies of that. Same for the Energy Barrier, just to be able to put that on the main scheme as soon as possible, because if you can keep the main scheme, Ultron on his first scheme for most of the game, you're going to have a way easier time. And then for leadership, obviously Squirrel Girl. So she can just come in and just blast every drone. So if you can find a way to just keep recurring her, she'll just take care of all the drones of everyone on the table. So very cool. But very close second is Hawkeye, because once you go to stage 3, Hawkeye is way better because he can take out 4 drones in one shot with his arrows. Bam, 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 bam. So it was a toss-up, but Squirrel Girl won today just because in the early game, it's so good. And then finally, in basics, Beat 'em Up is a card that you don't really see played, but against Ultron, it's a great, great character. It's a great card, and then deal damage to the villain and each minion engaged with you. Again, it's a great card for stage 1 and stage 2 Ultron, and then on stage 3, well, hopefully you've got the game under control and you can just finish it off and you won't need this as much. So in conclusion, Ultron probably still today one of my favorite villains in this game to play against. I just enjoy his whole mechanic, his whole design is just perfect in my opinion, without being oppressive. It can be frustrating sometimes losing your best cards, but I think overall I like this better than Surge. That's all I'll say. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. If you like these videos, please put that thumbs up. And last but not least, leave those comments. I always appreciate to hear what you guys think of these the effort that I put into these videos. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that. If there's any suggestions that you would like to make, please let me know. I'll try to incorporate as much as I can to keep these videos as short as possible and on theme. And on a little side note, if you want to have the best of times to play versus Ultron, if you bring Nova and unleash the Nova Force in a multiplayer game, you can maybe draw your deck in one turn. It's pretty crazy. And then Rocket Raccoon is another amazing character versus Ultron. So those are probably the top 2 heroes that you want to bring in this fight. So on that note, remember guys to enjoy these villains and these different modular suggestions, and just have some fun and play the game. And I'll see you next week for the Green Goblin and our first scenario pack. We'll check you out soon. Ciao, ciao.